What is going on, everybody? Bobby Firex Tabor. We're going to be talking about the early slate for Wednesday here. We're going to be talking about the late slate, and we're going to be talking about how Sheets made a run at everything last night and exactly what happened. Sheets, why don't you let us know what happened? You made a nice run.
Well, first of all, let's talk about something else. I literally built that night slate. Remember, everybody thought I was just kind of screwing around. When I built that night slate stuff online, I got like second in that thing, I think, for like 2K or something like that. But forget that. So I want to share my screen with you, and this is one of those where, well, see, here's the gap usually. Like usually when I get second or third, and I could have gotten first, I'm usually like, yeah, whatever, it is what it is. And Bobby looks at me and is like, how the hell can you take that? You've got to be kidding me! I would have killed myself, whatever. This one was tough. I have to say, excuse me. So let me share my screen. This one was kind of tough the way it happened. Well, just the way it happened. So this is one lineup, and the lineup I entered, the same lineup in both the Mega Eights and the championship qualifier, okay, which was 50K for first, and of course like $2 for second, right? So I ended up getting second in that thing for 800 instead of 50,000. And they ended up getting fourth in this thing. And I just want to kind of share my experience here. Okay, so let's look at the qualifier first. So the qualifier, basically, you had Josh Naylor with an 8th inning home run, okay, to get past me. Okay. But even still, even with Naylor getting the home run to get past me, I had several swipes beforehand, and then in the last at-bat for the Yankees, if Soto hits a home run, like I win everything. And if you watch it, I want to go out there and wring Soto's neck, because if you looked at his body language after he hit the ball, he was like this almost. Like he hit the home run, and it went to the warning track pretty much. Okay? Yeah. Really annoying. Okay. So that's the qualifier, and this is ruthless. From 50K down to whatever to 850. And again, just that one home run got past me, whatever. And then in the Mega Eights, okay, pretty much the same thing. So I ended up getting fourth again, and all of these guys got that Josh Naylor home run to go past me, and yet even still, same thing. If Juan Soto got that last home run, it would have been literally from cashing for 10 to cashing for 160. So
my God.
So not that I expect the Soto home run, obviously, but and here's another thing that's kind of fun to see. You'll notice that in my lineup, I had a stone zero from the leadoff hitter of a team that got 13 runs. Okay, which is if you think it's kind of tilting, you think it's kind of tilting. However, you look at the winner, he had 2 zeros. so the winner not only had the same guy get 0, but another guy gets 0. So it was, and he ended up with the Seager or whatever it is. So it was. I really thought I was going to win everything, and then it's so funny when Naylor was up, I didn't even realize what was going on. I mean, I saw him hit a home run, and then the first thing I'm like, oh cool, I got my 2 guys on base. They score. I'm like, oh wait a minute. And then I'm like, oh my God, I keep forgetting that Cleveland's popular. Everybody probably has Naylor. And they all went past him like, F this. But I knew that I was going to get back around for Soto at least with one more swipe, and just couldn't quite get out of there. So listen, it was I'll tell you one thing, by the way, that I did that, I mean, in pure disclosure, that kind of, I don't want to say necessarily got me to this, but it certainly didn't hurt. I did at the end of the day X out the Toronto game. I X'd out all the Gaussman, and I X'd out all of the Torontos because I was afraid of the weather. Turns out they played, and that could have come back to really get me. Gaussman didn't have a particularly good game, and Toronto, although they scored 9 runs or whatever, they scored it in a nice, easy way that it didn't bother me too much, right? But that is how I got to all the combinations I got to. Is I did end up at the end of the day making that decision to X out all that Toronto game. So listen, obviously good result, sort of, right?
Yeah.
And that Brown Waldron thing, just they just kind of steamrolled. It looked like Brown was going to get run out of the gym for like a little while, like the first inning or so. And then
I know. I thought my Seattle stack was going to come through.
Yeah, and then he got it, and then he gave up the win at the end, but it didn't matter because everybody else I was fighting with had him also. So yeah. So I guess I'm ready to get after it, I suppose.
Unbelievable night. It's crazy. The one of the weird things I noticed is that you had the Manzardo who people played, but everybody it ended up where what's his name, Josh Naylor, who hit the 2 home runs, ended up like completely unowned.
Yep.
Because of this. So he was on the winning thing on that one, but that was, I mean, it's just wild. It was a wild scoring game there in Cleveland.
Yep.
Well, great job, man. It's a hell of a run. I'm sure that you'll get those next few places pretty soon.
And I'm telling you, I usually run really pure in those top 10 finishes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this time it just wasn't meant to be. All right. So you want to do the early slate first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's talk it through. It's only a little one here on DraftKings, five games. They did include that 6th game on FanDuel. I'm not playing over there, but just wanted to throw that out there. So it does include the Pittsburgh and Detroit game, and I think that you have both the pitchers in that game as natural pitching options. I'm not really interested in the hitting, just to throw that one out the way.
I
didn't
check, but is there weather anywhere in this early games?
So not enough to where I'm worrying about. Like, I mean, what do you tell me?
I'm good. Green, yellow, yellow, green, yellow, green. No, this is all good.
Yeah. I was gonna say you tell me because the one, the New York game is
no worries.
But I don't think it's anything to worry too much about. And I think it's a weird little slate. It's a tricky one to get through, as I always say with these. I say you don't need a 5-man if you don't want to, but I found myself in the only lineups I building 5-man stacks. So let's talk through it. You want to go game by game, or do you want to just talk through the?
No, let's start with you Darvish, and let's talk about that for openers. So you Darvish, I have as the top value on the slate and the highest owned pitcher by a lot. And whenever I see that, I have pause. We've talked about this for forever. That Darvish is not usually the guy you want to play as chalk. And interestingly, when I did my first set of runs, and I have to redo them because some projection systems still had Scooble and all those guys in somehow, so I have to fix that. But I'm actually getting like a bunch of this Miami leverage against him, and I'm not really disappointed with that, especially in the lottery stuff, because Darvish can do that. So that's the first thing. And the funny thing is like after Darvish, there's such a big drop for me to everybody else that's the main decision is whether to play Darvish or fade him. What do you think about Darvish? We'll start with that.
I think if I was playing 10 lineups, he'd be in every one of them.
Okay.
I think if I was playing 20, I probably would have him in half. I don't know. I would try to get different the more I spread out.
So what you're saying? So wait, hold on. So if he's in 10 lineups, he'd be in all of them. So you're saying that in lineups 11 for 20, you'd have 0.
I want to get a little different if I started spreading out, but I'm only playing a few lineups, so he's in my lineups right now. I think that you have arguments for other guys near there, but honestly, none of these guys even look like, I don't feel good about any SP2, so really to try and talk myself out of Darvish doesn't make any sense, because I don't think there's one little bit of safety on any of these other guys. And, Darvish is more than a strikeout, better than everybody else projected today. Everything if Darvish was 10-5, I probably would play him the same amount. I don't really think that anything matters. So it's Darvish on FanDuel. I think you could incorporate the Scooble and what's his name, Jared Jones. But as of right now, for me, it's going to be Darvish and then a bunch of things that I don't feel so great about.
Here's another question. So here's my next question. And this is kind of a loaded question here. But with Darvish being the top pitcher at 8,500, and then, all kinds of stuff below that, how much money are you leaving on the table here? I mean, I am leaving, in my first set of builds, I'm leaving a freaking fortune, like on the table here. Did you see any of that? Or were you just like playing, like spending up for the Dodgers and not even worrying about it?
Yeah, I'm playing the Dodgers. Give me 5 games, and all things considered, low-ish ownership.
Okay.
And finally, like it's a decent hitting weather day for Shea, even though it's not like whatever, it's 80 degrees almost.
Shea Stadium, look at that, trotting it out like a boomer. You love that.
Yeah, so I feel like the easiest thing to do was honestly to play the team. I mean, I don't know, like to me, the Dodgers in Texas, and it's somewhere a combination of St. Louis and Cincinnati are basically what you would want to get exposure to. But I'll take the Dodgers in that spot, and I think Texas would be the most logical, but will probably end up higher owned than the Dodgers. And I think Cincinnati and St. Louis are going to be higher owned as well, or fairly close. So I just sided with it. I think they're going to be higher owned. So I think the Dodgers are actually going to come in like the 4th highest owned stack, and I'm in on it. I also think that if you wanted to do something at low ownership, especially like lottery based, I would probably have just make sure like 20%. I would probably go high on Philadelphia. I know Harrison's a decent pitcher and everything, but I like targeting the San Francisco game better during the day. And I do believe in trying to use the best offenses when you can. And Philadelphia, Texas, and the Dodgers are the 3 best offenses of the slate. The fact that Philadelphia won't have anybody probably double-digit owned is a little bit appealing. But in terms of my limited lineups, I am just going Dodgers. I ended up with Cardinals for value, which I know is going to be pretty chalky.
Yep.
I'm okay with that, but I'd rather have played Cincinnati. They're a little harder to get to, basically than St. Louis is. What are you finding with the stacks?
Yeah, and I was about to say that St. Louis is showing up as like a pretty chalky option. So let me get back a second to the SP2 then. If we're gonna play Darvish, and we're really talking about hand building, because I'm probably going to let Saberson just shuffle these things for me, because otherwise I'm going to end up with pretty much exactly what you said. I mean, I'll end up with Darvish, somebody, and Dodgers or whatever, or Cardinals. But do you like I'm seeing Dunning as slightly the next best, but not by a lot. So Harrison, Sanchez. I'm trying to find anybody low owned here.
I just don't think you can be trying. I don't think you want to play that game on a bad pitching slate. You know what I mean? Just because there's only 5 games. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be I guess Reen Nelson, but I just don't see any reason to do that. I was hoping that they would make Braxton Garrett cheap again, but they raised his price by $2,000, so he was the other one I was considering. But I just think that you just want to get your points and get out of there, kind of. The one who's sort of interesting as maybe a tournament play would be Montas, because there is upside there. And I guess he and Garrett would be the 2 that you would consider for tournaments, but there's nothing really that crazy low owned. And honestly, I think you're giving up a lot to try to play those low owned guys, just because these other guys are just all decent enough. I have it Dunning, then Paxton, which I don't feel great about. I think you could make just as good an argument for Sanchez or Harrison. But I have Paxton just as a slightly lower owned option because of a couple bad outings in a row against Cincinnati, and I'll take a shot with Paxton against the Mets here.
Yeah,
but I have Dunning as my main number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird little, again, I always tell everybody else, like bankroll management wise, you don't usually want to try and get so heavily invested on these kind of slates. In my opinion, at least I would rather do it on the big crazy ones than the 5 gamers where there's not only is there nothing like that stands out different pitching wise, it's really not that easy to get that different hitting wise unless you did something like play Miami, which like you said, for the lottery I think is a great strategy. For single entry, for high buy-in stuff, I just don't think I could get there myself.
Yeah. Okay.
But And for what it's worth, the Dodgers have not been hitting like the same way they were to start the season. And I say all that, and they're still like, they're 3rd best against lefties, 2nd best against righties in baseball. Like, this is the struggling Dodgers. That's still
ridiculous, right?
Yeah. And for what it's worth, you've got Vargas. You should have Vargas back in the lineup after hitting a home run, and our guy is back, and he's 2,200. Yeah, but the fact that we don't have a Dodger lineup, and I'm kind of hoping that it just keeps continuing, which I don't think it will, but If it comes like 1:30 Eastern before the other games are starting, after all the other games are starting, and they don't have a lineup out yet, you might see lower ownership than then projected on them. And it's not that David Peterson's so bad, but he hasn't been pitching, and it's the Dodgers. He hasn't pitched this season, and I'll just play the Dodgers in this situation.
I've been, I used to go against Peterson all the time, so.
I feel like you used to. I couldn't remember if you used to play him or if you used to go against him.
No, I would go against him.
Yeah. There's a few guys you always were really high on one side or the other, and I couldn't figure out quite why. And then I realized that it's almost always a New York connection.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is fair. That's something. And by the way, that's the one thing I felt good about last night. I really enjoyed this series, the Minnesota series, and I felt good about my pick. I feel good about this becoming a series. Now They got the tough one out of the way, and they didn't even need their best game to do it, but it was certainly a fun and exciting game, and I really enjoyed it anyway.
By the way, did you see? We talked about Luka a little bit yesterday, and we came on a little differently about the trash talking, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm really just kind of not down for it, whatever. I saw one press conference. Everybody's probably seen this one already. But I don't know where it came from, but they were asking him about Anthony Edwards or something like that, and he was saying, so this comparison to Jordan, I presume you mean Jordan Poole, right?
That's actually pretty funny.
I guess.
But the thing is, he actually loves it. He's very there's like a camaraderie, there's like a friendliness between them. It's really Gobert who he despises. And
I guess so.
But that's the one
that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
That's all we need now is playing Jordan Poole revenge in Dallas next year or whatever.
Man, it's a pretty wild one. Anyway, all right, let's see. There's something in chat here. Oh, what's up to Depot? Good to see you, man. Sadly, by the way, I couldn't turn it back into the thing again. I had the Kyle Anderson captains that just almost got there last night. I really thought there was a chance, and he played the minutes. I can't argue with that. Just didn't quite get there.
I did okay in that one actually.
Oh yeah,
Conley had a decent game, I think.
Yeah, he did. He had a really good game.
And even they got some run for Nicole Alexander-Walker, I think, also at some point.
Yeah, he was solid. I think he had like 10 points.
So we're now waiting on them, right? So when's the next game? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow's the next one, and
I'm with you, dude. I'm rooting. I mean, I'm totally rooting for it.
Yeah, if you watch the series, it doesn't look like there's a gap between the teams hardly at all, and I don't think Minnesota's played their best. And I just feel like people were writing them off a little too quickly yesterday. Just saying that, acting like the series was over, and it's but Kyrie's back in Boston now. We'll see. I mean, just because no team's ever done it before doesn't mean it won't happen. And ask the 2004 Red Sox about that. Sorry to your Yankees.
That is true.
It does happen sometimes. These things that never happen when you're still dealing with a fairly small sample size, considering how long it's gone on. Yeah, it's long enough, but sometime it'll happen anyway. Should we talk about the main slate?
Yes, we can talk.
Or how do you want to do it? Because we can talk about it and then get out of here for a few minutes.
That's fine. I'll do this in the background, I suppose. Okay, let me pull up the main slate here. Let's get all the way down here. One of these. Let me just pull up one line up so I can just. Okay. And. Okay, let me pull up my sheet. And am I now ready? Yes. Okay.
All right.
You want to go game by game with this one? Or?
Yeah, this one's game by game, I think. It makes it a little bit easier. And we do have some concerns about Baltimore is not on the main. It's not on either slate. So, okay. So we don't have to worry about the Baltimore thing because the weather there is no good. All right. Wow, boy, I did not feel good after the Braves did not get a hit till like the 6th inning. It felt like
it did not.
It was not a great.
Meanwhile, what about the Brett Brown?
Oh my God, I know. Seriously, that guy.
And Brett Brown, but not good enough to make the winner. You know,
right. I don't think he even played him.
Like Zach Wheeler with like 100 fantasy points, not good enough to make the winner. You know, it's like you needed to get to all those freaking bats yesterday. That's for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, like you said before, the night before the slate yesterday, it was a lot of good pitching on the slate, and
Yep.
and you got I mean, look, the one you got was the one that nutted up. Like, you know, that was, you wanted the cheapos, like,
Yep.
just like that. All right, so Mackenzie Gore and Schwellenbach. I'm not, you know, I don't know a whole lot about him, to be honest with you. So again, I'm going to assume that because of some of the total and whatever that I honestly don't know much about the Schwellenbach. Mackenzie Gore is probably more in play than usual. Overall here, though, I still might gamble, and I don't know if I want to stack Atlanta, but I'm going to hedge myself a little bit here. I like Gore a little bit. I like Atlanta a little bit, basically, in this first game.
Yeah, I am going to get I'm getting to a little bit of Gore, but not much. I feel as though we're supposed to take a shot at Washington.
Maybe
just in case this guy's terrible. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
In the middle, yeah. Maybe that's a good idea.
That would be my suggestion, is probably do something. Oh my God, I'm doing these builds for the early slate, and it is really the someone's got to win special, I think, because I'm getting like nobody good. Like literally, I'm getting like no good players, no good pitchers, no good stacks, no good anything. So we'll just see what happens, I suppose. I think I'm going to need one of those Darvish performances, so to speak. So we'll just see what happens. All right, but I think Washington is probably worth taking a shot at. And as far as pitching goes, yeah, I mean, I have Gore again. Like, he's going to be low owned, but I don't know.
By the end of the day, people are sort of fading on their belief in Atlanta, especially without Acuna and all that. I don't know where he'll be, but he probably will be.
That's just real. I do have him at 20% now. I guess not. All right, so let's we'll hold off on this one, but I still think that Washington, if the weather, I think they're worth a shot.
So I just did a quick dig while you were talking about that. But Schwellenbach, he hasn't pitched above AAA. He is 23 years old. These all give me reasons to want to play against him, and also probably to include him in my thing. If they think he's good enough to skip AAA, he's dominant in single A this year. There's probably an argument for both prongs of that one, Washington and some Schwellenbach. All right, Toronto and the White Sox. What do you got?
Yeah, so this feels like a good fade to me. So Toronto, again, like you said, they had been struggling, but they've been doing a little bit better. And yesterday they put up 9 runs, and today you get Flexen, and Flexen's that pitcher that people just love to stack against. Doesn't actually always work out though. And they're right now projecting right alongside with Cleveland at ownership. And I think this is something you're supposed to fade. I'm not going to play Flexen or anything like that, but I think that's very reasonable to fade Toronto, even though they're going to project pretty well. Manoah, yeah, sure. I mean, he's against the White Sox. He's projecting well enough. And I do feel as though the pitching is pretty even at the top of my value ranking. So Manoah, basically, I have like a 7-way tie really for who to play, and I think ownership is kind of covering that. So I have Manoah also owned at like 19-20%. So I think he's pretty reasonable. So I do like Manoah, and I'm probably going to end up fading Toronto, even though they project brilliant.
Yeah, I like the idea of just not playing a chalky Toronto stack. Like, their offense has not been anything that, like, even yesterday they scored a bunch of runs, and we always talk about, the way you score runs. I'm not saying that they're always going to have the no power thing, but this lineup is not what it once was. However, it is a good enough spot to where I'm not going to like cross off Toronto, but I don't think like playing a 5-man stack where everybody's going to be double-digit owned is like the dream thing to do on this slate. But they're on my list. They're not like incredibly high on it, but they're on there. And I like the Manoah for what it's worth as of right now. I mean, Manoah, he came back, up to the bigs, and he's been good. He didn't have a good last outing, but overall he's been good. All right. So but this next game, I think, or actually, I don't know which one you have next. Yeah, it is. Okay. So before we get into this, is there a reason why? I mean, I feel like this is when projections just are broken in general. Like, why is Imanaga consistently not by far the best projected pitcher on every slate? I don't get it. The guy has given up what 4 or 5 runs in like 9 starts. Like, what do you want from a pitcher in a floor, in a ceiling? There really is no downside to this guy. And the weirdest part is like they've only really let him fully stretch out in one game. He threw 102 pitches every other game, and he's just dominant. And his strikeout prop, for example, is 6, I believe. In tougher matchups than this, he basically is 7, 7, 8, 8, 7. Before that, 9. I don't know. He really only had those weird couple games. One of them against the Dodgers where he didn't strike out at least 7 guys. I feel like this is like a very obvious. Like, I do think he should be considered the top pitcher in baseball. Not that he is. I mean, at this part of the season, as of right at this moment, and I feel like he doesn't get treated like it. And it's just like our brain slowly, adjusting. But I have him in Aga number 1 as the pitchers on the slate, and I don't think other people have him number 1. And his K prop should always be the highest, and basically is always like 4th or 5th. So I love him in Aga today. I just wanted to start with that, and that was my big take from this game. I also like the Cubs a little bit.
Okay, so this is what's called bad statistics, but I'm gonna give you the bad statistics. I mean, the fact is, all right, he's projecting, and he always does. He's projecting at like 18.8 fantasy points is what I have him for, which is kind of a decent combination of what other people have him for. So 18.8. And the fact of the matter is he has 9 starts, and 8 of them are above that. Okay.
Right.
So, and I know it's not that easy. Okay. But at some level, this is kind of obscene. You know what I mean? Right. Like you were saying. And if I try to explain this to my son, he's got a 0.84 ERA, 5-0, 0.91 WHIP. He strikes out 8 guys a game, and he scores 20 fantasy points every single game he plays, except for 1 game against the Dodgers. Right.
Right.
They're like, oh, so what's his projection against the Brewers? Oh, I don't know, less than all of them. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to tell you. Except to say I agree. And I'll say it another way. He is projected to get about the same amount of fantasy points as Justin Verlander. Anybody want to like go head to head with that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, seriously.
What can I tell you?
Seen this before.
Anybody want to put that prop out on the line? I don't know. Anyway, not to mention that he's got like a legit 30-plus point ceiling. So anyway, yeah, I agree. I'm not getting to the Bryce or Brian Wilson or Bryce Wilson, and I'm really not getting to any of the hitting either.
Yeah, I think the Cubs are a little bit of a sneaky one for me. So I'm gonna stick by my Cubs guns. All right. What do we have next here? KC, Minnesota.
KC, Minnesota. I mean, talk about again, like kind of disrespect. I mean, okay, it's not disrespect. He's 9,600. Okay, but the ones in future king, like Seth Lugo. You know,
yeah, that's true.
We made fun, right? But look at what is it? 10 strikeouts, 12 strikeouts. Now again, his last game, people chased and they were not rewarded for their efforts. But he did throw 104 pitches.
I mean, he had 20 fantasy points. It wasn't like he was bad.
He did have 20 fantasy points. I mean, I'm not sure what you want from this guy.
Numbers are crazy with him.
I mean, like this is like a former Met guy too, right? I mean, like it's kind of like kind of debunking all the Sheets theories in here.
Well, maybe it's actually not. Maybe it's supporting the theories because the Mets only let him pitch like middle relief, basically.
That is very true. That is very true.
So maybe it's the same.
So I do have him rated, well enough for his ownership. I mean, I'm like 10% owned, I guess. And then you have Ober, who I think is actually going to get played. I have him at like rated 3rd or tied for 2nd, 3rd overall. I have him at 20-25% ownership, and that certainly makes sense. So I do like Ober here and some Lugo also, but Ober certainly at 8K is extremely reasonable for this spot.
Yeah, I think you might have, and I might have talked myself into Lugo a little bit. I just think it's a totally like. There's 3 pitchers on the slate that I feel like can break it, and I mean, I would not have thought about him that way before the season started, but at the moment, I have to give some respect, and I'll just point out, like, again, he had the one low strikeout game, but only 5.5 K prop against a team that strikes out a lot, that doesn't hit right-handed pitching. So I'm definitely open to the Lugo thing. I'm not getting to Ober. Like, I like Ober as a pitcher, and it's not that I have this incredible respect for KC. I just think I'm going to end up spending up at pitcher because I think the ceilings are a little bit higher, but maybe, you could argue that Ober is one of those, deserves to be in that category with those guys. So I guess he belongs with Manoah-ish, but I think I'm going to end up spending up at pitching later on. All right. Also, there's the bats that are expensive that I'm okay with fading the really expensive bats. All right. Next up, we have Cleveland, the big one, the Colorado-Cleveland game.
Yep. So again, as I mentioned yesterday, there have been 2 trends that have been continuing. Is that's been playing one trend's been continuing to play the road team in Colorado. But early in the season, everybody was streaming these pitchers at Colorado, and that fortunately for those players stopped because Colorado's been putting runs up at home, and so Tristan McKenzie was a good example of that yesterday. Now, both of those things said, I mean, Logan Allen is really cheap. I don't know. You know what? Maybe not. Where do I have him rated? I mean, he's like fine, I suppose. But again, Colorado's coming off of a couple of games where they're scoring a lot of runs. They might be due for a dud. I don't know. I'm not going to prioritize him, obviously, but if I get to him, I'm not going to complain. Now, on the other side of this is unfortunately, I think, another one where you might need to close your eyes and fade just because it's so obvious. It's like not only they project so great, but it's against the pitcher you kind of want to do it against. So I don't know, man. I mean, between Cleveland and Toronto, if you could somehow get away with neither of them smashing, you're going to be like a real hero, but maybe you don't need to be that big of a hero. I'm not sure. I mean, look, yesterday I played a very chalky Cleveland and was competitive for $1 zillion, so it's not that. I mean, listen, my one-offs, my one-offs, didn't I say? I had a freaking 24% on Soto. It's not like I went completely off the board there. I guess you got to respect the Cleveland spot. I don't know. I'll think about it. And I always do this. After I have a big score, I get like really stupid funky and try to give it all back in like one day. So it's possible I end up just forcing Cleveland and Toronto out. But as far as being responsible, Cleveland is an extremely strong play here. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, and the only thing that you have like that maybe like it's weird that it's different. They're sort of treating Block like he's not going to pitch a regular game. I would feel much better if he didn't.
Yeah,
but and the fact that he didn't get hammered the last few times in tough matchups at home. He's been hammered more on the road. Like he had the one really bad outing at home. Really just the one. It's weird that he's been I don't understand these Colorado pitchers when this happens, but yeah. So, I mean, the question is, I guess that for me, it goes under with my normal rule, no more than 4. Probably not going to have many lineups that have 0 of them. Jose Ramirez is the chalk that I'd most likely eat because of the multiple routes to get there.
Yep.
Also read something incredible about him. Just want to throw this out there really quick. He literally turned down an extra $50 million from multiple other teams. He said, if I make $150 million playing for Cleveland, it's just the same to me as if I make $200 million playing somewhere else. I wish guys had that mentality. I don't even think I have that mentality, but because I think I would have jumped wherever the more money was, I would have probably left my Dodgers and said, you know what? If I was on that level, but pretty cool that he just basically decided not to take $50 million more because he's very comfortable there. Like I just think that's a really cool thing. I like Cleveland. I'm gonna try to keep the stacks to like I said, 4 or less, maybe probably 3 or less, to be honest. Or if you played them, why not play them with Colorado? Even though I agree that Logan Allen is cheap and if you want to get cute, that's not like the worst idea, I don't think, but pretty, 80 degrees in Colorado with a little wind blowing out to left. It feels like maybe you make the Rockies a primary stack and have Cleveland as your supporting stack, because I think both these offenses are in play, but I really think that it's going to all go towards Cleveland, and the Rockies are going to be like 6 or 7% owned as a stack.
So the Yankees were cruising last night, and then they just got beat in the bottom of the 8th by the Troutless Angels. Today you have Louis Gill at 10-3, and he's actually looking like a pretty good option here. Again, it's pretty spread out across the board. I have him rated right alongside of Ober as like top value, second/third value. We'll get to Verlander in a second. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's fine. I had this feeling he's supposed to do something else, but he certainly rates pretty highly. And the Yankees are clearly, to me, the obvious pivot off of either Cleveland, Toronto, or both. They rate like second, third for me. They have the same lineup. I played them yesterday, I guess. Now again, I guess Tyler Anderson is he is what it is. I mean, sometimes
he's been very, very solid for what it's worth.
Yeah, he is. But what can I tell you? That's why they're not 80% owned, I suppose. But yeah, so I have no problem playing the Yankees again. And as far as Gill goes, I've just been enjoying paying down for pitching. And if I was going to pay up, I'd probably play Imanaga first. I think that would be my comment on that.
Yeah, so I actually have, and I mean, I thought that my builds, before I started considering this Lugo thing, I was just like, okay, whatever it takes, I'm fitting in Gill and Imanaga. Like, I just think that your play for the ceilings when you have guys that stand out, and to me, having great matchups where they're not, I don't know. I just think the ceiling is too high, and Gill is unbelievable, and these Angels still don't scare me. Although every time I say that, they end up going off.
Yep.
So and I agree with you that the Yankees would be the natural pivot. I'm going to offer another one in the next game that is going to be weird. But I do like the idea of Gill, and I think the Yankees are so expensive that it might just keep their ownership low enough to where you can play them as a full stack and not have to worry too much about that them being too popular.
I don't know. I'll let you take this Houston-Seattle one away in a second, because I actually consider this kind of like a weird three-pronger, actually. Maybe even four.
Yeah.
So like Verlander's going to, as usual, he's going to project, as long as he's priced like this and he has all these Hall of Fame numbers, I mean, lifetime, he's just going to always look like a good play. And he always has kind of a fishy ceiling, I guess, nowadays. But if you're going to find a team to get that ceiling, Seattle's a good place to start. So he's going to look pretty good. I don't know, man. Kirby at 8,500 looks pretty tempting. Again, yesterday, I don't know how Castillo ended up doing. I just know that Houston ended up not scoring that many runs until very, very late, I think.
Yeah, Castillo was fine, but he didn't put up like any real number or anything.
Yeah. But 8,500 Kirby at wow, I was going to say low ownership. I guess it's got to be lower owned than a lot of these guys, I guess. I don't know. I don't – it feels a little weird, but I wouldn't mind taking a shot at that. And as you might have been alluding to, certainly no problem taking shots at Houston. And you know what? Maybe even Seattle. I think this could legitimately be a four-pronger. What do you think?
So that's my bold take when I can't find anything else to do. I've never done it before. I've probably been the guy who plays the most Justin Verlander or Max Scherzer of anybody in baseball. I literally play them every time since I started playing this game. There would never be lineups where I wasn't playing these guys, no matter what the situation. And I have a feeling about Seattle tonight. So I think Seattle stacks is totally in play. If you want anything to boost it up for you, first of all, they faced Verlander like 10 times or 8 times, something like that. And they've handled it pretty well. They're hitting 250 off of them, which is, doesn't sound like much, but that's tough for a guy like Verlander. It's a way to get different on this slate. I don't know if you need to fully 5-man stack it, but certainly taking pieces there is somewhat interesting to me. So I like the idea of I think both pitchers make perfect sense if you're not doing the spend all the way up thing. And by the way, you can make an argument that these guys could outscore the spend all the way up guys. They both have extremely high ceilings. And I would be more leaning towards Kirby. He's been really good against the Astros so far. And these teams play each other. They're the same division, so they see each other a lot. I'm into the idea of maybe going for ultimate leverage and playing some Seattle. The only thing I have to question myself is I probably am getting enough low ownership because I think what I'm going to do, this slate is so obvious where the chalk's going to be. I just wanted to try to find a way to get like a little bit off of it. And to me, the Cubs were the thing that made the most sense. And Seattle was the wild thing that made the most sense to me. So that's sort of where I'm leaning as my other ones. But then you mentioned the Washington idea, and that sort of stuck with me too. So Washington, the Cubs, and Seattle as pivot stacks. The obvious ones, both sides of Coors, and the Yankees. That's what I've got for this slate. And I have Imanaga, Gill, and Imanaga, then Gill, then both the pitchers in the last game, and along with Lugo as the ones I like the best.
The only problem again with these Seattles, I keep struggling whenever I want to play them against these righties. Who to freaking play? You know,
we keep announcing different lineups too. But yeah, I would play
Crawford leading off at 3K is cheap enough, right? And Raleigh is obviously always good switch hitting, right? And
yep.
But who else? I mean, they're all righties and they all swing free. You know, I don't know.
It just really depends on the. Also, they've changed their lineup up and position. I mean, Mitch Haniger goes from batting second to ninth, or eighth or whatever he was hitting yesterday.
Maybe Sam Zone if he gets in. I guess you play him maybe.
Yeah, I think that. For me, it would be. I still think that I'm going to bet on the long term of Julio Rodriguez and just ignore what's happening right now, unless he's really popular, and he's actually been really he's 4 games in a row of double-digit fantasy points. But Luke Raley, Josh Rojas is probably one of the better plays, and assuming that he's still at the top of the order. And they're all so cheap. Maybe not a full stack, maybe a full stack actually. But I think that this makes for I think it'd be 1 through 5 would be the most interest I would have. Maybe you could throw Canzone in there if they put him somewhere in the order, somewhere different in the order. But I kind of just real quickly going back to your Washington idea, I think that's a pretty good idea. And I think that it makes so much sense that I think some sharp people are going to get on it. It's one of those spots where you might see guys in Washington at 5% or 4% in the lottery, and they're 15% or something, or 12% in the high buy-ins. That's what I envision. Because I think the Washington thing makes a lot of sense, Sheets. And I think I want to go back to that Washington Cubs.
Yeah, you got to really keep Cleveland off your ass. I mean, they can really smash this thing.
I know. Well, that's the thing is if you play these teams, you can play it. I can play a 5-3 with the Cubs in Cleveland. I can play a 5-3 with Washington and Cleveland, or a 4-4 even with Washington and Cleveland. By the way, a lot of 4-4s won a lot of things last night for what it's worth. Pretty much all the tournaments I looked at was 4-4.
And I'll tell you, those guys are swinging it good. I mean, Jose Ramirez is swinging it well.
Yep.
And that guy by the I said rookie, whatever the guy that you mentioned, he had a good fantasy game, but it wasn't good enough to beat Naylor. That Sanzo, his name was. Yeah, he swings it good. I mean,
and they're actually probably should be more expensive outside of Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor. I mean, Tyler Freeman at 41. They'll probably have Jonathan Rodriguez in there at 3,200 a day, which is oh God, they're going to be very.
It's going to be a rough one, man. I'm telling you, it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that if you try to hope a few guys, and look, it's baseball. You know what I mean? You can have 27 balls hit right at people. Hopefully that's what happens if you're fading Cleveland, because I can't.
That's tough.
In good conscience, do it. Maybe in a single entry, I could play Cleveland as a 5-man. I don't think I would even want to do that though. Well, single entry, I could do it, but that's pretty much the only format I would consider a 5-man. I just can't do it. All right. So should we get out of here? Do you have to finish up your things, and then we'll come back and do some golf?
We'll do golf at 1:00.
Awesome. Sounds good, man.